there is no longer a competition for viewership between the XFL and the USFL. They've decided to combine their powers, or they decided to merge. No, wait. What did they decide to do again, Mermaid Man? Unite! And form the United Football League. Now, with the UFL resurrection and 8 franchises unfortunately getting put on the chopping block, a bunch of new players needed to find a bunch of new homes. And thankfully, there's this thing called the dispersal draft. Now, the dispersal draft is either supposed to close the gap between talent on rosters, or it's just going to accentuate an already existing problem. With the UFL season set to kick off at the end of the month, we're expecting to see teams kind of get a better understanding of who they want on their rosters. And that will help us kind of gauge what teams are going to be good or not. But see, the question is that with the dispersal draft spreading out all this talent, are we going to see much of the same as we did last year, where the bad teams are just going to stay bad? Brother, or are we going to see another heartwarming Cinderella story underdog tale like we saw from the Renegades in the XFL Championship? So far, since I started my research on everything spring football related, I don't think that I've seen a team that was poised for such greatness just for them to sputter out on both sides of the ball when it mattered most. Wait, actually, I take that back. But, you know, what makes it worse, though, at least, is the fact that it was in the championship game that they were favorited to win, but they ended up losing by 9 points. And who's that team, you might be asking? Don't worry, I did all the research, so that way you, my friends, didn't have to. I know that you guys have been foaming out of the mouth, waiting for the answer to the cliffhanger I just left you with, so I'm not going to edge you any longer. The DC Defenders, or better known as the reigning first place losers, are the topic of today's discussion, ladies and gents. And I can already hear it now. But wait, how could they be losers if they went 9-1? Because they couldn't even beat the custodial staff of Jerry World in the XFL Championship game that they were supposed to beat. But you know what? I'm not gonna get lost on that tangent yet. And I know it may seem that I have ADD, but I assure you, I don't. I just have so much to say, but just not knowing where to say it.
Have you ever had a dream that you had?
Now, DC is led by their HBCU lifer, Reggie Barlow, who became head coach of the organization back in 2023 when they announced their initial return. Now, if his name doesn't ring a bell, he was formerly the head coach of Alabama State University, who he interestingly tried to sue for wrongful termination after sucking up a storm. Newsflash, that kind of happens when you just aren't good. And then he ended up coaching for Virginia State University. But before his coaching career, he was also a receiver in the NFL for 8 seasons. I didn't know that either. He was a part of that Tampa Super Bowl back in the early 2000s. You know, the one that's better known as the John Gruden Bowl. But you know what the old saying is? You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become racist. I mean evil. Gruden, man, he had so much potential. Why did you have to go and pull a Donald Sterling? So back on topic. Reggie Barlow credits all of his success to his HBCU roots. And in fact, he's leading the charge in trying to get a lot of these HBCU programs some exposure by being the face that represents them. And what a great showing it was, up until the championship game. But you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. This team started off 6-0. That was until March 31st, Orlando, Florida, when they faced up against the Orlando Guardians. And honestly, this was the writing on the wall before any of us even knew it. When you let Quentin Dormady go out there and slice up your defense and look like prime Dan Marino, God, why are you so handsome? It's going to be a problem. And just for your information, this guy was accused of giving away his team plays to the opposing defenses. Because you know, those eyes just scream innocent. Allegedly, because I gotta throw that in there, he was giving you his plays and he somehow still torched you. Like, it's just funny to just think about that scenario. But you know what? I think it's even more ironic to see one of the best teams go down because of their terrible defense. This DC offense was absolutely loaded on almost every single facet. And there's no wonder why that they were rated one of the top offenses in the entire league last year. They were led by their 2023 Offensive Player of the Year quarterback Jordan Ta'amu, who threw for 1,894 yards and 14 passing touchdowns with only 3 interceptions. And oh yeah, he was only the team's second leading rusher with 301 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. But it's got to be easy being one of the best passers in the league when you have the best rushing attack in the entire XFL. Abram Smith didn't care if he stacked the box or not. Guess what? He was going to run through you. He ran for 788 yards on 155 attempts. That's over 5 yards a carry. And also he had 7 touchdowns, which that also included a 218-yard 3-touchdown effort against the Battlehawks and AJ McCarron in week 5. And that's not even mentioning the extra 138 rushing yards and 3 reception touchdowns that he notched in the XFL postseason. Dude, Abram Smith, in my opinion, deserves another shot in the NFL. This guy is incredible. And oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention he played as linebacker at Baylor. But wait, there's more. Not only was their rushing attack incredible, they had one of the best wide receiver rooms in the entire league. They had 2 wide receivers combined for over 1,100 yards. Chris Blair was their leading receiver with 584 yards on 25 receptions. He led the league with 22.8 yards per reception, and he hauled 3 touchdowns in as well. Unfortunately for this offense, Blair did sign a contract with the Atlanta Falcons in the offseason, but to be honest, I wish him nothing but the best, especially now that Captain Kirk's there. Their second leading receiver is All-USFL Lucky Jackson, who had 572 yards on 36 receptions and 5 touchdowns as well. And here's just an absurd fact for you. On all 50 of his targets, he didn't record a single drop. He either caught it or it was just out of his control. And you know what? I don't know who needs to hear this, but the Chiefs had some problems with some drops last year. And guess what? This guy doesn't do that.
Explain it again.
But the success of an offense solely relies on the success of the big guys up front. And yes, I'm actually about to talk about some offensive linemen.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
Michael Mayetti was on track for having a monster season before getting hurt midway through. In 5 games, he only allowed 3 hurries on 174 snaps. Guard Liam Forndell only gave up 1 sack on 11 pressures and 326 pass blocking snaps. And he even earned the second highest grade among rush blocking guards in the entire league, according to, you guessed it, Pro Football Focus. You know, to be honest, with Jason Kelce retiring, I feel like I needed to tip the hat and at least mention 1 or 2 of these guys. It just so happens that they just were really good. I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't said the name of this team since the very beginning of the video. Now, why is that, you might be asking? I'm glad you asked. Because for one to be named the Defenders would mean that one defends. And the only thing defending on this team is Gregg Williams defending himself and this terrible fucking play calling. The Defenders had one of the worst passing defenses in the entire league, giving up 266.1 passing yards per game and giving up more yards per game than Vince Wilfork weighs. And by the way, that's a lot, okay? And honestly, no wonder why Luis Perez came in there and absolutely torched you guys. Like, he whipped out his Dominican D and slapped your D across the face with it. I think the dispersal draft was honestly one of the best things that could have happened to this team, because with the UFL allowing you to retain players, the strat was pretty easy. Retain all offense, redrafts all new defense. They overhauled that entire defense and brought us some pretty big names along with it, 7 of which being ex-NFL players. The first of many name drops to come is safety DJ Swearinger. And if he sounds familiar, that's because he's an ex-NFL journeyman who boasted some pretty good stats along the way, but you know, he just forgot the golden rule. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, then just don't say it, dude. He was released from numerous teams just for not being able to just keep his thoughts to himself. And for the most part, he thought that his NFL career was over, or football career was over, until he signed the contract with the DC Defenders because his son just wanted to see him play. They signed former first rounder DeAndre Baker, who is coming off of a broken femur injury. They also signed former Texan Garyon Conley, who had a pretty solid career and was even on that playoff team back in 2019, but suffered a horrible ankle injury. But you know what? On the plus side, he sacked Patrick Mahomes. They even re-signed their all-XFL corner in Michael Joseph, who only allowed 296 yards on 30 catches. And if we're just comparing him to a top defensive back in the NFL, looks pretty comparable at least, right? And he was the third highest targeted corner in the XFL last season. And here's just another interesting fact for you. He has been signed, waived, activated a total of 20 times by the Chicago Bears. They also re-signed their team sack leader Davin Bellamy, who was another shining star on an otherwise bleak defense. And you know I gotta save the best for last, right? They re-signed linebacker Reggie Northrup, who had a serviceable 2023 campaign, but to be honest, Northrup probably would have had a better season if he wasn't too busy going 7-0 as the Black Dragon in the MMA. I mean, just watch this flying knee kick, like holy sh. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, they even drafted the XFL sack leader in Trent Harris. Now, I know I've been a pretty harsh critic for a team that went 10-2 last season. And, you know, when a team has such a glaring issue, it's only magnified when you're just such a good football team. And, you know, I fully expect this team and their retooled defense just to go into the UFL, instantly becoming one of the better teams in the league. Don't get me wrong. But what does concern me, though, is when you have Gregg Williams as your defensive coordinator. And I hope that he's a religious man, because if he doesn't make this thing work with this new defense, I think he's going to be the one that has a bounty on his head.
Remember me. I got the first one. Take out that outside ACL.
I appreciate you guys for just making it to the end of the video, and since you made it this far, why not just hit me with a like or maybe even a subscribe?
Seems a little overwhelmed by my girth and tonnage, right?
You know, don't forget to tune into the next one so you know why you hear them scream. And hey, hope this isn't tacky, but I just got to give you a quick little shout out, man. Thank you so much, Rodder Cressel, for the kind words. Like it really does mean a lot, and I'm just glad that you're enjoying it, dude. I not only do this for myself, but I do it and post it so that way someone else can, you know, find enjoyment out of it. And I'm just glad that you think that it's somewhat good. So thank you.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode